That's it. All right. Hello, Avian Science. How's everybody doing today? Good, I hope. Yep. Okay. Good. Everybody's starting to get active in the chat. Excellent. Okay. So, as always, I like to start with announcements. I've got your quiz and your short answer question posted on Blackboard. There might be some stuff there that is in what I have planned for the lecture on Thursday, rather than just today's lecture. So I have not posted the material for Thursday because I drastically updated the material for today, and not quite sure how long this one's going to take. All right. So the first thing we need to talk about is what is a bird. This is Sassy. She's a female mallard. Her head was mounted in a very poor position. So this is a taxidermy mount. But the fact that her head is wonky is why she got called Sassy. She's my model for all things bird. So the first thing I want to say is birds should see an avian vet. Your typical vet who handles dogs and cats may not know how to treat birds. They might, but it's not as likely. As we're going to see, birds' anatomy and physiology, the way their body is put together and how it works, is going to be very different than what we see in dogs and cats. They're going to get different diseases than dogs and cats. They're going to respond differently to medications than dogs and cats. Some things that are safe in dogs and cats will not be safe in birds, and vice versa. So we need to define what is a bird. How do we define a bird? Does anybody have any ideas? What makes a bird a bird? Feathers? Flight? Mary Kate, I see your hands up.
Is it because they have like a beak, or they have to have like wings?
Beak. Yep, beak is good. Somebody put the comment about bats. That's a very good point. Flight does not necessarily equate with birds. Hollow bones for flight. Yep, birds certainly have that. Okay, so laying eggs. Yep, that's a good one. So the terms that I like to use when we talk about what is a bird: endothermic. That might be a new word for you. You might have seen it before. I'm going to define these words for you. Tetrapod, vertebrate, feathers, beak or bill with no teeth, and they lay hard-shelled eggs. So these characteristics really help us define a bird without much confusion. Is anybody familiar? Well, no, hang on, let me go to the next one. Swans and geese do not have teeth. They have serrations on the edge of their beak. So these are folds on the edge of the beak They kind of act similar to teeth, but they're not made of enamel and dentin and anything like that. Somebody already has been talking about this. Flight does not make a bird. We have flightless birds, and we have things that fly that are not birds. So let's get into these funky terms that I was using. Endothermic. Therm refers to temperature. Endo refers to inside. So birds maintain a relatively stable body temperature. So their body temperature, like ours, we've maintained a relatively stable body temperature. But if you think about snakes, their body temperature fluctuates dramatically. So the bird body temperature, depending on the species, is going to be between 101 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, endothermic is the scientific word for warm-blooded. Good point, Maddie. Now, some birds stay warm regardless, all year round. This little sparrow over here on the left, it's going to keep its body temperature up all the time. Other species go into a resting state called torpor. Hummingbirds are one of the groups that does this. Hummingbirds need to eat very frequently. And if they did not go into this state called torpor at night, they would literally starve to death overnight. So they go into this resting state where they have lower metabolism, they have a reduced heart rate, they use less oxygen, they need less energy. It's almost like a form of hibernation. But hummingbirds do it every night. They do it sometimes during the day. There are a few birds that do it seasonally. Most of the birds that do it on a daily basis, however, which is what makes it different than hibernation. When we talk about tetrapod, the word should be a clue. Tetra means four, pod means foot. If you think podiatrist, somebody who studies feet. Tetrapod literally means four-footed. Scientifically, it means four limbs. So mammals, obviously, front legs, back legs. Frogs, front legs, back legs. In birds and bats, two wings and two legs. This is a non-tetrapod. So that kind of sounds weird, but we tend to group animals into tetrapods if their ancestors had legs. So things like this caecilian, things like snakes don't have legs. We call them tetrapods because their ancestors had four legs. Basically, most land animals fall into the tetrapod category. It's basically vertebrates on land. So it's vertebrates excluding the fish. I've seen whales with legs, just kidding. Actually, whales have, some species of whales do have remnants of hind legs. So they do have part of a pelvis and they have some bones and muscles from their hind legs. These whales use that during mating behavior. So they don't use it to swim or walk, but these structures, they're all internal and they're used to help with making more whales. Vertebrates, if it's a tetrapod, it's a vertebrate, but we can add in fishes. Any animal with a bony or cartilaginous internal skeleton, so it's inside the body. And then the last word I used, one of the last words I used is animal. When I teach this class in person and I ask students to define animal, it's kind of surprising to me how many people who are in animal science forget that things like spiders and butterflies and nudibranchs and starfish and corals, these are all animals. So animal is any member of the kingdom Animalia. Laura, spiders are animals. You may not like them, but they're still animals. There's a very technical definition of animal in biology. We're not going to do that for this class. My definition for this class is if it's multicellular, so if it's got multiple cells, you can see it with the naked eye, and at some point in its life, it's capable of moving by itself, it's going to be an animal. So we look at corals down here in the lower left. They don't move during the stage where you see them, but they do move during the larval stage. So they do have a stage of life where they move. Anybody who says, oh, somebody's got a bird. Hi, Betsy. Who's that?
This is a Shishui.
Hi, what kind of bird?
He's I believe, a Mexican green conure.
A Mexican green conure. I haven't seen that particular conure.
Me neither.
Is he loud?
No,
Wow.
not unless if like he's in his cage and I have to like shower. Then he'll get loud. I think he's really bonded to me.
Yeah, they do that.
Contact calling.
Yep, exactly.
Hmm.
Thanks, Betsy. Yeah, he likes you. Okay, so birds have feathers. Feathers come in several different varieties. The ones that we think of are the ones on the left here that are called veined feathers, but they can also be kind of fuzzy. They can be downy feathers. Feathers are soft. They often have, like the veined ones, this shaft, this structure in the middle is hollow in a mature feather. These fluffy ones are used for insulation. So they've got lots of different things. Yes, Laura, there is something called a blood feather. We're going to get to that when we talk in anatomy. But let me stop this sharing. So I can show you some feathers. So this is kind of a typical feather. It's got this shaft down the middle of it. It's kind of soft. We think of this is a flight feather. This is a tail feather. But we can also find feathers like this. Oh, what kind of bird? The last one I showed you was guinea fowl. This is an ostrich feather. So this is what ostrich feathers look like. They're much looser. They don't have that tight structure. They're used largely for insulation, display, protection from the elements kinds of things. Not flight. And I want to show you one more, because these are cool. These are, this is one emu feather. So again, it's a flightless bird, and the feather structure is much more flexible and softer than a typical feather that you're used to seeing. I have to keep that closed up in case the cats come in the room. Oh, somebody's cat is watching the feathers. That's cute. Okay. The next thing we tend to see on birds are beaks. You may have also heard the term bill. Bills and beaks in modern day language just refer to the same structure. In the past, there used to be a difference there, but that doesn't apply anymore. So a beak is an external structure. We find them in birds, we find them in turtles. There are a few other organisms that have them. There is a base of bone on the inside, and they are covered with a very specialized skin. So what you're looking at is actually a thin layer of skin over the bone. These do not have teeth. Now, bird ancestors used to have teeth. Keratin, yeah, keratin's involved in the structure of feathers and the structure of it's part of the skin on the surface of the beak, yes. So their ancestors used to have teeth. They have genes involved for making teeth. And if there's a small genetic mutation, you can get teeth. Usually the bird doesn't, it has a lot of other issues as well. So this is a hornbill. So this is an African group. Of course, flamingos, our shoebill stork, love shoebill storks. This is a sparrow, bald eagle, and this is an albatross or a northern fulmar. I can't quite tell from this particular image, but it's got this funky structure on the top of the beak. The shape of the beak is a good idea, gives you a good idea of what the bird eats. Several of these are fish eaters. The shoebill stork will eat fish. The bald eagle eats a lot of fish. I think that's a fulmar, eats a lot of fish. This hook at the very front edge of the beak, sharp projection, is used to grasp fish. Fish are, of course, very slippery. They move around a lot. So that hook is important for helping to grab that fish and to pull pieces off of it. You're also going to see this in birds of prey that eat meat. They use that hook to get into the prey and start pulling pieces off. Birds that have a beak shaped like this little short conical beak, that's a seed eater. Flamingos, their weird beak is because they're filter feeders. So like the ducks and the geese, they're going to have those little ridges on the sides of their beak, and they take water into their mouth, close their beak, and then push water out through the sides. And because they have those little teeth-like structures, those trap any small invertebrates, shrimp, small fish that might have been in the mouthful of water they took. Finches do not have those little folds on the sides of their beak. Do birds have an egg tooth? Yes, they do. Birds do have an egg tooth. It's a strong structure at the end of the beak that's important for getting out of the egg. Okay, oh, this guy, this is called a tube nose. So there's this tube right over the beak. You find tube noses in saltwater environments. This structure is connected to what's called a salt gland. So these guys drink salt water, but you can't drink salt water. It's bad for you. So they have this special gland that takes salt out of their blood and literally make a little slurry of it that comes out their nose. Fulmars stink. Anything that eats fish is going to smell really strongly. When I was doing wildlife rehab, when we would get a fulmar in, I could tell from the parking lot because I could smell it. Finches have this conical shaped beak, Laura. So they're all going to have this short little beak like this guy. Can beaks tell the age? No, not really. Okay.
Not even if how worn down it is.
Not really, because the beak continually grows and gets ground down through use.
Oh, okay.
So birds lay eggs, but they lay hard shelled eggs with a lot of calcium. So the shell is mostly made of calcium. Other organisms tend to lay leathery eggs or soft eggs. The inside of a bird egg is very, very similar to the inside of a reptile egg. So on the inside, it looks very, very similar. It's the outside that's different. Eggs come in a lot of different colors. We tend to think of white ones, maybe plain brown ones, but they can be green, blue, speckled. Look how dark this one is. This is an emu egg, and this is one of the darker ones. They often come in a dark green, like starting about an avocado color. So that is the emu, and this, of course, is the ostrich egg. So they come in obviously a lot of different sizes. Largest cell on the planet. For now, yeah. There are some extinct species of birds that laid even larger eggs. I've seen the egg of an elephant bird. It's about the size of a basketball. And it's only a single cell when it first gets laid, and then starts to go through cell division. Yes, this ostrich egg is very round. I always expected it to be similar in shape to a chicken egg or like my emu egg here. But yeah, that's pretty round.
Well, quick question.
Yeah, Laura.
Oh, sometimes our birds or like animals will have eggs, but there's nothing in it. And people say those are okay to eat, but like there's nothing. Is it the same material that a actual animal would be birthed in, or is it like
Okay.
like the same stuff is in it, but there's actual animal growing in it?
So an unfertilized egg, the chicken eggs that you get in the grocery store are unfertilized. So what they have in them is yolk, which is the food to feed a baby chick. And they have a bunch of membranes, which are important. We'll describe the details of what the membranes do when we talk about eggs. And there's a lot of protein called, the white part of the chicken egg is called albumin, which is a protein that is a source of not so much energy, but building blocks for a growing chick to grow. But there's no chick because they're not fertilized.
Like how if humans give birth, it's like we're feeding the nutrients through the placenta, but the egg has nutrients for the bird.
The egg does have the nutrients inside it, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So I don't know if you guys can see the whole cartoon because some of it's behind pictures for me. It turns out that birds are more closely related to reptiles than of any other currently existing group of animals. So they're not that closely related to mammals. They're not closely related to amphibians. And reptiles are not closely related to amphibians, even though they get lumped together in herpetology. So as you can see, herpetology is a silly field. Reptiles are more closely related to birds. It should really be broken up with lizards folded into ornithology. Yeah, right, that's going to happen. And then at herpetology conference, as you can see, ornithologists are actually assholes. I thought this one was funny. But it shows you this relationship between the reptiles and birds. There are some, if you look at a bird and you look at a lizard, they don't look like they're related to each other. But if you look a little, they have a common ancestor with each other way back in the past. A lot of people in herpetology do believe that birds are reptiles. Some people call them feathered reptiles. Ornithologists don't generally like that. So there's a lot of history involved in organizing these groups.
Is that the one that flew that had wings that people thought was more of a reptile, but I forget what it's called, but
Archaeopteryx?
no, the not maybe it was that one. I'm thinking of a petrosaur or something.
Okay, I'm not sure about that one, but I am going to start talking about dinosaurs because birds are modern day dinosaurs. They're descended from the dinosaurs. If you look at this cartoon in the upper left that shows a Dimetrodon, a Pterodon, a Plesiosaur, a Mosasaur, and a Basilosaurus, and a cockatiel, only the cockatiel is a dinosaur. Pteranodon. Yeah, no, pteranodons are not birds. I think they're probably considered a reptile, but they're not an ancestor to birds.
They are the last feathered reptile to ever exist.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm thinking of something else. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I know my Jurassic Park movies pretty well.
But I mean, to be fair, they were flying creatures with feathers. So, I mean, I would get why you would think bird.
Yep, yep. It's hard to
They
draw the
also laid
line.
eggs, but yeah.
It's hard to draw the line and say this one was a lizard and this one was a bird. This fossil down here, this is a feathered lizard. You'll find teeth in the mouth, even though it's got an elongated structure here. You're right, Daniel. Dimetrodon is a mammal. Basilosaurus is also a mammal. Kinley, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Isn't like pterodon, isn't that more like bat than bird?
It's not mammal.
It's really hard to tell the difference, actually. Like you're right, like it's a very thin line.
Yeah, it can be hard to figure out what group these extinct animals should be in. I think a lot of them, hang on a second, Laura. I think a lot of them probably would not fit neatly into modern categories. So we put Dimetrodon in mammals because it's kind of related to the ancestor of mammals. But yes, it does have characteristics of a reptile. Okay, so we were looking at this fossil down here. It has, yeah, taxonomy. Oh, taxonomy is a hot mess. You can see imprints of feathers coming out of the wings. And these are long feathers. These are big feathers. This animal probably flew, but yes, they had teeth. They had tailbones. You can't really see them in this image, but those are the kinds of characteristics that we use to separate the flying reptiles and the birds, although that's really an artificial definition difference there. This is a amber preserved bit of tail from what we believe to be a dinosaur. So this is dinosaur feathers preserved in amber. Betsy, did I see another bird?
No, it's the same one.
Oh, okay.
He's just really
think
up
I
in my
saw-
business.
Something over your shoulder.
Yeah. He's the only one.
Okay.
It looks like he needs a friend.
All right. So so this preserved feather is 99 million years old. Amazingly old. Feathers do not always preserve well in fossils. It turns out that early fossil discoveries did not realize that you could find impressions of feathers. We've also seen in more recent times the ability to see soft tissues. So we found fossilized dinosaur hearts. We found fossilized blood vessels, and we can see the red blood cells if we look under a microscope. So there are marks on some fossil dinosaurs that indicate locations of large flight feathers. So flight feathers have to be attached to the bone. So you can actually see that on the bones. But we think that a lot of the earlier dinosaurs had feathers more like the ostrich or the emu that I showed you earlier. And of course, were they capable of flight? Some of them probably were gliders rather than flyers, but eventually evolved into flying. We think the feathers originally evolved more for insulation. Dinosaurs, like birds and mammals, had four-chambered hearts. Four-chambered hearts is almost always a sign that the animal is warm-blooded. So we think that to some degree they had the ability to keep their internal body temperature up and were active. So yeah, Maddie.
Yeah, Maddie. At what point did that like change? Because like reptiles, like they cannot regulate their body temperatures. At what point did that like, I guess like, because I mean birds they still can, but reptiles cannot. When did
Right.
that like happen?
That is an excellent question. As far as I know, we don't have a specific timeline. I know that during the last part of the okay, so dinosaurs span a time period from, I'm going to forget the first number. The more recent time is 67 million years ago. Does anybody remember when they started showing up? I just can't remember off the top of my head. But it was several 100 million years ago. We know that in the last period of the dinosaur era, where we start seeing evidence of feathers, where we start seeing archosaurs like the Tyrannosaurus and the Velociraptor, we know that by then they were warm-blooded. But we have, the further back in time you go, the fewer fossils there are. Just because they wear out. They don't last forever.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense that we wouldn't know exactly.
Yeah. But if we look at this page, so this is a family tree of all, let's see, it doesn't have the fishes on it, but all of the tetrapod animals, tetrapod vertebrates. The further to the left, the longer back in time. So this was a very, very long time ago. This ancestor probably looked a lot like a salamander and still needed a lot of water and that kind of stuff because it wasn't long that it had been fish. Somebody looked it up, 243 million years ago. That sounds about right. So if we look at these lines, the ancestor to all of these groups, one of them formed this group that eventually became mammals. And Dimetrodon is somewhere on this lineage. The other became the group that we call the reptiles.
Sorry, Professor, is there any other way that like I can see the actual like dinosaurs, but like flip it so I can, it's like I'm trying to draw this out.
Could you repeat your question?
Like, is there any, so that, like where everything is like sideways, can you make it so it's like right side up or no?
Oh, no, I can't. I'm
Okay.
sorry. That's the
Never
way,
mind
that's the way it was created. I didn't make this one. So what we see in the reptiles, we have no idea where turtles should be. So we've got a dotted line that turtles might be over here, but then we have all of the other reptiles. I'm not going to ask you this term. I'm not going to ask you this term. The reptiles then split into two groups. One group eventually led to the lizards and the snakes and the tuataras. And this lineage is what we call the archosaurs. And the archosaurs gave rise to the crocodilians, which means crocodiles, alligators, and gars, and the group of dinosaurs. Dinosaurs including the two different major groups of dinosaurs and the modern day birds. So birds are generally considered modern day dinosaurs, but their nearest relative that is still alive are the crocodiles. So if you want to talk about birds, you got to start thinking about archosaurs. And yeah, turtles have not changed in a long time. Crocodiles have not changed in a long time. They're very, very successful. Okay, so I like crocodiles. It's a weird obsession of mine. They're strange. They're not like lizards, even though they have the body shape of a lizard. Crocodiles, like birds, lay eggs in nests that the mother takes care of She doesn't sit on it like a bird because crocodiles are not warm-blooded. But she monitors the nest. She protects it from predators. When the babies are born, she carries them to the water and she protects them and helps them learn how to find food. So there's a lot of parental care there. Now, some lizards, some snakes have some parental care as well. Even some amphibians have parental care. So this is not all that unusual, but the nest building part is kind of unusual in the crocodiles group. Alligators are crocodiles. And yes, the baby alligators make cute noises and the big males bellow and make very frightening noises. It's really a good thing to go on YouTube to look at or listen to. Okay, crocodiles also have a 4-chambered heart, which you do not find in lizards. Alligators have various other parts of their body that are just unique. We don't have time to go into it. This class doesn't really need to go into it. But I have a textbook on their anatomy and physiology and evolution. So I'm a little nerdy.
It actually looks really cool.
I love that you're nerdy. It's good.
It's a unique
Well-rounded.
trait.
All right, so here is a cassowary foot. So a cassowary is a very large flightless bird, not as big as an ostrich, kind of deadly. Look at those claws. And this is the foot of an alligator. So you can see that they have scales, just like alligator scales. They have long toes. Alligators have these sharp claws on the end there. All birds are going to have scales on their legs and feet. They're going to have some kind of claw. Cassowary really kind of, that's one of the bigger ones. Cassowaries, you may have heard, there was a case in Florida in the past couple of years where a cassowary killed a person. Basically kicked him to death. And in their native Australia, they often kick dogs to death. So they can do a lot of damage with, look at that claw. You can see this purple is somebody's hand. No, the guy in Florida was not a zookeeper. He was a private owner. Yeah. Yeah, they could disembowel you. I think the guy in Florida, the bird opened up his femoral artery. So yeah, they should not be pets. Absolutely not. There are a lot of people out there who keep animals that they really shouldn't. Okay, so that's defining birds. Yes, people with riot shields. Yeah, if you're dealing with ostrich, emu, cassowaries, I've seen zookeepers go in with ostriches. They're a little more mellow than cassowaries. Cassowaries tend to be, kind of snippy, but I would want a riot shield or something like that if I was going in with those guys. Exactly. Kick first, ask questions later. If there's anything left to ask questions of. All right, so we're going to talk about laws as they relate to birds. So generally speaking, there aren't a lot of laws about things like dogs and cats, but when it comes to birds, there are lots of laws involved. And we're going to talk about some of the major ones. We'll start with the U.S. Migratory Bird Treating Act. So this act provides that it is unlawful to pursue, hunt, take, capture, kill, possess, sell, purchase, barter, import, export, or transport any migratory bird or any part, nest, or egg of any such bird unless authorized under a permit issued by the Secretary of Interior. Some regulatory exceptions apply. Take is defined in regulations as pursue, hunt, shoot, wound, kill, trap, capture, or collect, or attempt to pursue, hunt, shoot, wound, kill, trap, capture, or collect. Lawyers, they got to put all these words in it because somebody will find a loophole. So basically, in the US, what's a shorter way to say that? I'm about to summarize it for you right here.
Because I need dummy words for that. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. In the US, you are not allowed to kill or keep as pets wild bird species. Period. You can't have taxidermied mouse. You can't keep them as pets. You can't hunt them. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to this rule, but that is your basic rule of thumb. If you think about a blue jay, you can't have it as a pet. You can't kill a blue jay. You can't have a stuffed blue jay sitting on your bookshelf. The Migratory Bird Treaty Act does not include species that are set aside for hunting. It does not include rock doves or city pigeons, same thing. It does not include starlings. It does not include house sparrows. So starlings and house sparrows and city pigeons are not native to the US, even though they're very, very common here. You're right, this is not just endangered birds, because one of the way birds become endangered is by being popular in the pet trade. Now, there other kinds of exceptions include if there's a bird inside the building, you can catch it and put it outside. If you have an injured bird, you can catch it and take it to a licensed wildlife rehabilitator. I put licensed in all caps because your neighbor who rehabilitates baby squirrels, she can rehabilitate baby squirrels all she wants, that's fine. But if she starts taking baby robins and she doesn't have a permit from Fish and Wildlife or Fish and Game, she can get busted and shut down for that. And there are reasons for that. We're going to talk about wildlife rehabilitation for the second part of the semester somewhere, and we'll talk about the reasons why you really have to be licensed. Hunting birds is legal, but they have different restrictions. So the restrictions vary from state to state. Only certain species can be hunted only during certain times of the year, the season, and you can only hunt limited numbers of individuals. Again, we have seen in the past that unregulated hunting results in species becoming endangered or even extinct. So generally speaking, what gets hunted? Ducks, turkeys, quails, mourning doves. I don't know. Hunting mourning doves to me just, it's like, you can't eat them. They're too small. I mean, how much meat can you get off of those birds? So, and not all types of ducks. One of the things with duck hunting is you have to be able to identify the species in flight and in the water. There's a group of duck hunters called Ducks Unlimited. And they formed because they wanted to be able to keep hunting ducks. And they knew populations were going down. And so they wanted to maintain populations of ducks so they could keep hunting them. So this group has done a lot of conservation work. They do a lot of work protecting land, important for duck breeding and for feeding and on migratory routes. They support funding of research. And in the US, since Ducks Unlimited has formed, most species of duck have increased in population. They've really done a fantastic job. I've heard there are other organizations about other bird groups like quail and turkey that are trying to do the same kind of thing. Turkey numbers are definitely going up. I don't know so much about the turkey organization, though. I just know about the ducks. Are there laws about how you hunt? Yes, absolutely. But they're going to vary, but from state to state and from species to species. And falconry, we're going to have a whole lecture on falconry towards the end of the semester. There are definitely special laws about falconry. Certain caliber guns, yes. And I think they also limit how many, usually duck hunters use shotguns.
Yeah.
There's a limit to how many shotgun shells can fit in your gun. So you can't just keep firing.
I think it's 2 or 3. Not even 3. I think it's
I'm
6.
sure it varies from state to state.
Yeah. That too, yeah.
So eagles, here we go. Eagles, even more laws. So the laws on possessing or harassing or shooting eagles are very, very strict. You cannot hunt eagles. And in the US, this is bald eagles and golden eagles. You cannot possess the body or the feathers of an eagle. You cannot do it. If you want to possess migratory birds, you have to get a permit. So zoos and museums that have specimens have a special pet permit. Eagles require an additional permit. And unless you are a Native American or a museum or a zoo, you are not getting a permit to possess eagle feathers or any part of an eagle or a live eagle. So if someone says this is a real eagle feather, it can't be a bald eagle or a golden eagle, and they're either having it illegally or they're lying. Yes. Well, dead eagles, eagles that die by accident, that don't survive rehabilitation, that are shot by somebody who is now in a hell of a lot of trouble, go to a federal government repository. And this repository is to provide Native Americans with the parts of an eagle that they use for their ceremonies. So they're not out there actively hunting eagles. Yes, Maddie, if you find a feather on the ground, legally, you cannot keep it. This applies to any migratory bird in the US. Now, what's going to happen? You find a feather on the ground and you take it home. If you just keep it on your bookshelf, or even, like I've got these feathers in a frame and I hang them on the wall. All these are all domestic bird feathers that I show you in class. You're not, Fish and Wildlife's not going to come knocking down your door. If you start selling feathers from wild birds on eBay or something for crafting, or sell crafts made with them, that's when you might get contacted by Fish and Game. So generally speaking, The Eagle Law is very, very strict. The Migratory Bird Act is very, very strict, but you know, if you're one person and you have taken in one baby bird and you're trying to rehab it, you don't know what you're doing and don't know about the law, you know, Fish and Wildlife will give you a lecture if they find out about it, but that's about it. They're trying to go after the people who do it in large numbers. You can buy jewelry and arts and crafts that have feathers from domestic species. So a lot of those are going to be chicken feathers. So like my little case of feathers here, these are all captive birds, and none of them are North American natives. So that's why it's legal for me to have all of those.
Does North American natives include Maine? Yeah.
For the Migratory Bird Act, North American species.
Okay.
This law, however, is international. CITES. You may very well have heard about this. CITES covers all kinds of animals and all kinds of plants. It's an international treaty. It's designed to help protect rare and endangered species. Now, you can, okay, well, I'm going to put a big asterisk here. Under CITES, you can keep certain species of birds that are not native to the US. Birds that are listed, though, under CITES, which means birds that CITES think are vulnerable or endangered, require additional permits to own. Exceptions include, there are exceptions, captive raised species. So if you were looking at a parrot, a conure, a macaw, if it was born in captivity, that's an exception to this rule. You can have that one legally. If it was caught in the wild, brought to the US, and you have it as a pet, that is illegal under CITES. CITES also regulates international trade in body parts. So again, macaw feathers, if it was born in captivity, you're fine. If you found a macaw feather while you were on vacation in South America and you bring it back to the US, you're in trouble.
I was watching a show called To Catch a Smuggler International, and they actually do have people search, like if someone has like a crate, a dog crate, or has birds, they actually do have like animal people that do that. And it's just interesting because I saw an episode that had birds in it. It's just like, it's cruel. Kind of cool. Like they may think it's like okay, but it's really not.
Yeah. Okay, now that's the Migratory Bird Act and CITES, but we have additional rules. And these additional rules have been written up to protect wild birds because somebody found a loophole in the original laws. So the Wild Bird Conservation Act prohibits the import of wild caught birds for the pet trade. So zoos and museums can get permits to bring in wild caught birds for certain research or captive breeding programs, but you cannot have a wild caught imported bird as a pet. Before this law, over 800,000 wild caught birds were imported into the US every year. This doesn't include how many died in transit. If I remember right, birds that are imported, more than half of them die en route. And when we talk about smuggling, it's more like 5 out of every 6 die in transit. Now, the Lacey Act is another loophole. You are not allowed to own or trade wildlife that was illegally acquired. So
Okay.
you're not allowed to have an illegally imported bird, but before the Lacey Act, you could sell an illegally imported bird. And you could buy an illegally imported bird from somebody else, even though you're not allowed to have it. Kinley.
But isn't that doing exactly what you say you can't do, but you're making an excuse out of it anyways?
Yes, exactly. But
So they should get in trouble then.
they should get in trouble. Yeah, that's what I mean by saying they're exploiting a loophole. There's nothing that says this specifically is illegal, even though it should kind of, the logical person would include it in some of the previous laws.
So trading, does that make money? Can that involve money?
Yes, trading can involve money or exchange for
I put an example in
services.
chat. Is that?
Hmm?
I put an example, like say Joe Schmo comes to you and tells you he'll pay blah, blah, blah money to go to the US with this bird. Doesn't tell you it's an illegal bird. So you do it. And when you get caught, you find out that he's got that bird illegally.
Yeah, if Joe Schmo tells you, can you carry this across an international border? Yeah, do not do it. It doesn't matter what they ask you to carry across an international border. Just never do it, because it's always something illegal. And if you get caught, you're in trouble. Yes, whether you know it was illegal or not.
And they will find the person originally who gave you that bird also.
Yep. Individual states might have additional laws. If you rent, you may also need to talk to a landlord about your pet bird. Some landlords don't allow them because some pet birds can be very loud and some can be very destructive. The illegal pet trade, which is reptiles as well as birds and insects and mammals, is a multi-billion-dollar industry. As far as birds are concerned, only about 1 in 6 survive. Many of these are sold online or at public auctions. And these birds can end up in pet stores. So if you want a pet bird, you want to know where it came from. Yes,
I get that asked all the time at work.
do what?
I get that asked a lot about our conures. Like, where did you guys get it from?
Yeah, that's a good question to have people asking. Yeah, a lot of times if animals are found from the illegal pet trade, they do end up in zoos. That's very common. Ideally, if you want a pet bird, you would go to a breeder so you know where it came from, or go to a rescue group. The MSPCA in the Massachusetts SPCA always has birds. They have lots of parakeets, lots of finches, lots of doves all the time, and they usually have a couple of conures, parrots, or macaws. So it's very easy to get a secondhand bird. When we talk about parrots, we're going to discover that very few parrots stay in one home all their life. Most of them get rehomed multiple times. during their life. And we'll talk about why that is so bad for parents. Betsy, I know you're sitting there going, oh God, she's going to tell me I'm a horrible person for having this, but that bird looks very happy and very bonded with you. So I'm hoping it's looking like you do things the right way.
I tried to.
Yeah. So there is a rescue group called the Foster Parents of New England that also has birds for adoption, largely the bigger birds like parrots and macaws and cockatoos. That one is still around. Most rescue facilities only function for a few years, and then basically their rescue facility fills up. And they can't find enough people to adopt the birds, or the birds are too psychologically or physically ill, and they just become a sanctuary. So that's the common result for large bird rescue groups. Okay. So that kind of wraps up the introductory stuff I wanted to talk about with what is a bird and what are the laws around birds. We are not going to get as far as I wanted. Actually, I'm going to have to look at your assignments and make sure that I didn't put questions in it that we aren't going to cover on Thursday. I'll do that this afternoon. But I know there are some questions from the material we'll talk about on Thursday. Mary Kate, go ahead.
For the assignments and the quiz, do you want us to wait till after Thursday to start doing them, or?
That's what I would recommend, because we haven't talked about that material yet.
Okay, so wait till after class on Thursday to do that.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
that's my recommendation.
Yeah. And then also at the end of class too, so I was just wondering, like, the whole new Blackboard setup is really confusing, and I was like struggling to find out how, like, to get to that like introductory post. I usually go to discussion board, but like it's just
Okay.
is it gonna be under contents, or is there like a whole different tab? Can you go over that again? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oops. Share screen. Let me see. Okay.
I don't know if anyone else had trouble getting to it, but anyway.
It's all right.
I was wondering if anyone else had trouble finding out where everything
Well, let me
was
show
on
you.
the Blackboard layout change.
Yeah, they did change layouts since the last time I taught for you guys. Okay, so this is the new Blackboard. If you go to the left side, you should see this bar, and one of the tabs is courses. You can click on that. It'll have spring 2023, one of which is our class right here. Click on that. And that takes you to the course website. Now, hang on a second, let me put it in student view. Okay, so this is what yours is going to look like. Here's your Zoom link. Here's the YouTube channel Zoom link. I'm going to keep these at the top of the announcements. Over here, we have a tab on syllabus and course information that has a lot of assignments and that kind of information. The rest of the material is under content. And under content, I'm setting it up by week. So this is this week's information. And in this module, you find your assignments. I've not seen the quiz. The lecture notes, the PowerPoints. I don't know why the quiz is not showing up. I wrote it.
So can you click on the first thing, or is that not like, so when I tried clicking on that, nothing came up?
Well, the checklist, you can see the entire checklist right here.
Oh, so it's not like, oh,
So there's not a link there, but if you see the short answers, there's a link there. The lecture notes, there's a link, and the PowerPoint, there's a link.
So say like click on short answers, that would, because I like clicked on that or something and it didn't originally pop up. Like at first I was like, you have a drop down menu, right? Before, I think when you showed us.
Nope, at this point, it's the actual contents.
Okay.
Why is it doing it that way? Anyway, I don't think I've activated anything on the discussion board, probably won't. And of course, you can see your grades down here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, thank you for showing us that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Several things showed up in the chat. Let me see. Will we talk about extinct species of birds like the terror birds? That's kind of bits and pieces here and there. You guys do have a project to do, and if you want to do a project on the terror birds, that would be fantastic. Yeah, Blackboard changed. You think it's way more easy? That's good. I'm glad you think it's easier.
I mean, I'm willing to get used to it. It's just gonna take time. Like,
Yep. No worries.
I mean, I think it was definitely time for a change though, but I don't know. Maybe that's just my brain.
You'll get used to it.
I hope.
Any other
'Cause
questions?
I'm not used to snow, this much snow in this late of January.
I don't live in Massachusetts. I
Yeah.
live in California. We don't have
And
it.
yesterday we're just, yeah, no, it was bad out yesterday for Massachusetts.
Okay. Anybody besides Laura have any questions or comments? Okay. In that case, oh, Kinley, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Is there a test coming up on the question? I mean, the notes we just did?
We don't have exams. We have quizzes.
Okay, so quiz.
So yeah, so the way I grade this class is we have weekly quizzes and then which are multiple choice, and then a few short answer questions. It's a separate assignment. And about I think it's every 4 weeks or so, there will be a review quiz and a review short answer session that will cover, basically 4 weeks of the semester.
Okay. Is that for homework tonight?
And those are
Okay,
open
good
notes,
news.
so.
All of the assignments are open notes. This week we have just a regular quiz and a regular set of short answer questions. Okay, and we are out of time. If you have other questions, email me. I'll try and get back to you. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Thursday.
Have a good day. Have a good night.
Bye.